Hello there, my name's Gary Sims and this is Gary Explains. Now the potential and the promise of VR and AR has been growing for several years now, and we're now at the point where several big technology companies have their own ecosystem with their own headset, and there are many more coming along the way. Now the problem we have with all of this is that each of these devices, each of these products come with their own ecosystem. We don't yet have that kind of ubiquitous kind of ecosystem that is available for many different types of companies to come together and each produce their own device, much like Android, where you get devices from different players. That's where Snapdragon Spaces comes in. So if you want to find out more, please let me explain. First of all, I'd like to thank Qualcomm for sponsoring this video. Now, Snapdragon Spaces is the software that you need to be able to make XR apps work across a variety of different devices. Now, XR in this case is the umbrella term for all different types of virtual reality. So you've got virtual reality, VR, where everything you see on the screen is completely generated by the computer. Now, AR is when the display is also transparent, and so you can see through it, and what's projected is stuff that augments, adds to what there is in real life. And then mixed reality is actually something completely computer generated, but because there's a camera on the front, it's taking images from the real world and incorporating that into the VR world, so you get a mixed reality. So together we will just call those XR. Now, Snapdragon Spaces is the software development kit that's needed to build XR apps, as I said, for a whole bunch of different headsets and other types of devices. Now, of course, Snapdragon Spaces comes from Qualcomm, and Qualcomm are really a leader in this area. For example, the Meta Quest and the Meta Quest Pro use the Snapdragon XR2 and XR2 Plus platform. So already we're seeing products out there that are using Qualcomm's chips, but Qualcomm want to make more than just chips. So they have to make the chips. That gives you the processing power with the power efficiency, because of course these are untethered devices. But more than that, they also have sensor technology and other types of technology for connectivity, for tracking, hand movements, all that kind of thing, plane detection, that they can incorporate alongside of just the CPU, GPU and other stuff that goes into the XR2 kind of processor. And then on top of that, Qualcomm also have reference devices which their partners are able to use very quickly to go through the prototyping phase and then actually out to real products. Snapdragon Spaces hardware development kits are available in selected regions right now. If you'd like to buy one, use a link here on the screen or in the description below. And Qualcomm are also involved in the scaling of the ecosystem. With all of these users, they need new apps, they need software updates, all this kind of thing, and Qualcomm are involved in that. Now, besides those things, there's also Snapdragon Spaces. Now, this was a software development kit that was only used by Qualcomm's partners when they were developing their headsets. But now Qualcomm have opened it up to all creators. So if you are a person who is interested in creating XR apps for a variety of different headsets that use Snapdragon Spaces, use Qualcomm's processors, use Android, because a lot of this comes in combination of use with Android, then this is the thing you need. Now, more than that, and this is the thing that really impressed me, is that it uses Unreal or Unity. Now, obviously, when we're starting with something like XR, there is this tendency to think you've got to start at the very bottom, start with the very low level libraries and start building things up to do all those XR kind of things that you need. But instead, now we've got these tools that are used by thousands and thousands of developers all around the world to generate 3D games. We're now able to also use that to generate XR applications using Snapdragon Spaces, which means you know it's going to work on a variety of devices that are compatible with Snapdragon Spaces. So you don't need to relearn all the tools. You're just familiar with Unreal, great, use Unreal. You're familiar with Unity, great, use that. And then there is added the things like hand tracking and plane detection, which we'll talk more about in a minute, that's been added into the SDK, so you can use them from directly within inside the tool of your choice. That means you can get to spend your time to be the creator in creating the apps, rather than worrying about the technology and what it all means at a lower level. You can trust that to the SDK and move on to use your inspiration to create something great. Now, built into the Snapdragon Spaces SDK for Unreal or for Unity, there are a variety of technologies that you can use. For example, we'll start with the first one, anchor points. Now, all of these come with examples when you download the SDK, and of course there is documentation to support it as well. So an anchor point is just tracking a particular point in space, so you know exactly where it is in the 3D world. You've also of course got hand tracking, so that you can track what your hands are doing, controllers, or however it is you're designing your app, so that they are able to interact inside of your XR world. There's also image tracking and plane detection, so that particularly, for example, in augmented reality or mixed reality setups, an image can be projected onto a flat or horizontal or vertical surface, so you can work around it. And of course, there's so much you can do around that with modeling and games, and there's just so much that can be done, and that's all built into the SDK. And a great new feature that's just been added to Snapdragon Spaces is called Dual Render Fusion. Now, a lot of the headsets that are coming will use a combination of the headset and an Android phone, whether that's connected via a wire, where it's connected wirelessly. Think kind of, the equivalent of the streaming services that we have nowadays for gaming come over the internet to your PC. Well, why not stream something from your smartphone to the glasses? So some of the work can be done on the smartphone rather than on the headset. Now with Dual Render Fusion, what happens is you can now add a second display. So something can be displayed on the Android smartphone and on the headset. That means now as a creator you have two displays that you can use. And what's really interesting is this is also a stepping stone from a normal 3D app on a smartphone to something that uses XR, because you can add the second display, something on the headset, as an extra feature without having to rewrite the app all again from the beginning. So for example, if I'm playing a game on my smartphone, I'm using augmented reality or mixed reality, I can see the phone and I'm playing the game, and then extra information can come up as augmented information on my headset while I'm still playing the game. I don't need to rewrite the game for AR or for MR. I don't need to rewrite it from the scratch. I can keep my same game but add a second display which incorporates the headset. And then of course the opposite can happen. I can use my headset as the main display and extra information can come out on the Android device. This really does open up the way for creators to jump from smartphone apps to XR apps without having to start again from zero. Now, of course, with all new technologies, there is always this kind of chicken and egg situation. Do you need the apps first, the software developers first, or do you need the device first, the operating system first? A new something comes out, well, there are no developers for it. Well, the developers can't come because they haven't got the platform to design, all that kind of stuff. Well, Snapdragon Spaces solves that problem by giving us a standard way to develop apps for XR. And then, of course, there are a whole bunch of devices that you can test them on. There are even hardware reference devices that you can get from Qualcomm. So really narrowing that gap and enabling developers to leap into the full potential that we are now starting to see come out with XR applications in general. To get started, you can download the Snapdragon Spaces SDK for free using the link in the description below. Now, I'd love to hear in the comments below what you think about XR, about the future of VR and AR, mixed reality, and how you think the software like Snapdragon Spaces can help bridge that gap and bring us into this new arena. Love to hear what you have to say. Okay, that's it. My name's Gary Sims. This is Gary Explains. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up. If you like these kind of videos, why not stick around by subscribing to the channel? Okay, that's it. I'll see you in the next one.